Are you live?
You're live.
Good morning. This is the Conference Committee on H.660. This is the bill relating to the opioid abatement special fund appropriations. And we have both House and Senate here. We have Ledge Council here. And I think what we'll do first is to say thank you for being here and thanks for your work on this bill. And we've tried to put our effort in as well. We know this has been a difficult year for this bill in many ways because we're seeing transitions in how the money is being used and there are a whole lot of things going on outside of the abatement fund. There's a lot of legislation now on recovery residences and other things related to opiate addiction. So, Katie, I'm going to ask of you to please, we all know each other, right? We don't need to do that part. Katie, do you mind, Ledge Council, please go through the side-by-side that you have. That would be helpful.
Sure. Good morning. Katie McGlynn, Office of Legislative Counsel. Here is the side-by-side. I know you're short on time, so I'm not gonna go read all of this to you, but we have an as passed by House column, as passed by Senate. This first row has to do with the appropriations from the opioid abatement special fund. All of the House appropriations are in this column, and the Senate version is the same as the House. It has 5 exceptions. And as passed by Senate version, subdivision 6A has $600,000 appropriated versus the $900,000 in the House version to the Department of Health for the creation of new recovery resident beds at NAR certification level 3 or above. And in subdivision B, there is $600,000 appropriated to the Department of Health for opioid use disorder treatment beds at ASAM level 3.1 versus in the House version, that's $300,000 for the creation of new NAR certified recovery beds in various regions of the state. Second change between the two versions is that the Senate version has $800,000 for recovery centers. That's not in the House version. Third, the Senate version has $287,000 to DPS for the Public Safety Enhancement Team's harm reduction program. That's not in the House version. Fourth, the Senate version includes $1.1 million to Burlington for the OPC. Provided funding. It's not distributed until there's a location and the facility is currently or will imminently become operational. That's not present in the House version. And then the Senate version appropriates the last 4 subdivisions in the House's list from the Substance Misuse Prevention and Special Fund. So it's the same appropriations, but coming from a different source. Next, there is language that's amended from a previous opioid special fund act, and that is the same in both bodies. Next is section 18 VSA 4772, which is the advisory committee. Both versions add to the list of stakeholders to include Health Equity Advisory Commission. Both specify that each funding proposal submitted to the committee contain a sustainability plan. In the Senate version, but on the House version, there's language that allows the Department of Health to issue separate recommendations from those in the advisory committee and requires the advisory committee and the Department of Health to issue that the issued recommendations be developed in consultation with the Attorney General's office. The next section or row has to do with the special fund, section 4774. This is not present in the House version, but in the Senate version, it specifies that funds from the special fund can be used for co-occurring mental health and co-occurring substance use disorders. Then we have an appropriation review. So in the House version, we have that by December of this year, the Department of Health is reviewing appropriations from the special fund to make recommendations to the advisory committee and General Assembly regarding which appropriation could be funded by the Misuse and Prevention Fund in future years. That's not in the Senate version. In the House version and in the Senate version, we have language that prohibits the committee from accepting new funding proposals from the special fund in fiscal year 28, except where previous statute anticipated annual funding. And in both you have, instead of receiving new proposals, that the Settlement Advisory Committee is tasked with reviewing outcomes of program initiatives previously funded by the special fund. And then not in the House version, but in the Senate version, there's language that if funds are available after making fiscal year 28 recommendations, that the advisory committee shall identify specific areas of focus and make funding recommendations from within those focus areas. Not in the House version, but in the Senate version, there is a requirement that the Department of Health submit quarterly reports on special fund expenditures in fiscal year 27. There is reversion language that is the same in both bodies. In the Senate version, but not in the House, there is a plan coming back in November from the Department of Health about syringe recovery models and the percentage of distributed syringes that are returned. And then we have appropriations from the Substance Misuse Special Fund. And as we already discussed, these 4 items that are from the Substance Misuse Prevention Special Fund in the Senate version are appropriated from the Opioid Abatement Special Fund in the House version. And then we have section 4812, which is the statutory language creating the Substance Misuse Special Fund. And we have language that's not in the House, but in the Senate directing the Department of Health as part of its annual budget presentation to report on specific spending proposals from this fund for the upcoming fiscal year, including an estimate of the monies in the special fund anticipated to remain unallocated at the end of the fiscal year. And then both chambers had the same effective date.
Okay. And you've already responded with some comments, so perhaps you could just go through with us what your, first, do you have questions of us regarding what we presented to you?
I'm not sure so much as questions per se. I think honestly it'd be easy enough to go through Katie side by side and let you know where we're in agreement and where we have a proposal and where we want to seek.
Good, I was going to suggest that next, so that, do you want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. All right. Good.
Okay, so I think, of course, the first one, we are proposing a change, which is around the recovery resident and recovery residential treatment beds. So the department has asked for some flexibility there, and we agree with that need for flexibility. Our language actually also had some, specific locations for some of those. So what you'll see in our proposal is a total of $1.2 million, which is the same dollar amount. It's just totaling up those two things. You'll see a proposal of $1.2 million that gives the department flexibility for additional recovery residences at level 3 or above of NAR, and not to be confused with level 3.1 of ASAM. Which is for residential treatment. So it enables them to use that money flexibly in prioritizing unserved or underserved areas of the state. So that's
Okay. And the concern that we had was that all of those funds would go to one place. The way you're describing it, you would concur with that. You'd like to see it go to both level 3 and then at the medical level 3.1. You'd like to see it in some way used flexibly for both of those.
it allows it to be. It doesn't direct it to be in one or the other, but it allows it to be in both.
Okay, so that was one of the concerns. I want to make sure there's, because we know that there is an acute need for the addiction medicine levels. That's then the other. So that's enough on that one.
Okay.
At this point, but I will bring up, and this probably is for the entire bill. We also know that there are rural health transformation grant funds going out, and how to balance that with what's going on here. So understanding there's going to be some duplication, there's going to be some geographic distribution of RHT that might, really enrich one area of the state without another part of the state. And I include in that Chittenden County very much.
Yeah.
So where we have significant problems, we know, and we know what problems are. So I just wanted to bring that up as a cautionary tale.
And I think that's why, knowing that underlying, resources, particularly for recovery, housing is, one of the things that's highlighted as a priority in the Rural Health Transformation Grant, that allowing some flexibility here to serve, parts of the state, that might not be served by that grant, I think, is, I think we agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The rural health transformation, the one concern I have is that if we put something in here and rural health transformation is intending to fund, are we at risk of jeopardizing the rural health transformation funding in any way? I mean, does the Department of
The answer is yes and no.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right, but sorry.
Yeah, I'm not
I don't-
interested in
yeah.
having comments at this
Right.
point,
Thank
so
you.
there are
Okay.
questions that you could ask outside of the
Yeah.
conference, yeah.
fair enough?
In our committee, we were told that it was not an issue, but it's good that we know that things change almost on a daily basis with the Rural Health Transformation Grant. So,
Well, and they are
question.
affecting, they are affecting what's happening in some of our current programs, so we need to be, I bring it up, not because we're gonna solve all those problems, but that we need to continue to be aware.
On the next two items on Katie's, the 800,000 for recovery centers and the 287 for public safety, neither of those were in as passed by House. And so, we're open to having discussion about those.
Okay.
So we're not agreeing, we're not disagreeing at this point in time, okay? The Overdose Prevention Center, again, we took additional testimony since we received your committee's report as passed by the Senate. And they have, the city of Burlington and their subcontractor have funds all the way through FY27. So appropriating additional funds in FY27 did not seem wise to us. However, you'll see that we are going to propose some language around that.
Okay.
So we're not in favor of the 1.1 million. We appreciate number 5, appropriates the last 4 items from the Substance Misuse and Prevention Special Fund, which is where our committee had actually funded them some, and our appropriations committee was awaiting further review in the Senate. And so we're happy to see those
Oh, good.
where they belong.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
So we can agree on something.
We can agree on
Awesome.
those. Yes, absolutely. Okay, on the next thing, which is allows Department of Health to issue separate recommendations from the advisory committee, that's already in the underlying statute. So we don't see a need for that language. The Commissioner of Health actually, what we added, I think it was last year, or the year before, I think, we allowed the advisory committee to submit their own recommendations because the Commissioner of Health was already submitting recommendations. So we don't need that language.
I think it was just simply to offer clarity because we still see some tension going on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not to say that there's not tension, but
There's always tension that makes things go forward.
I think that we like your language around co-occurring mental health and co-occurring substance use disorders. That seems to have been clarified from between the AG's office and Ledge Council, and being clear about it, I think this is good. And so, and Katie, just a question, that's not in session law, that's amending the underlying bill, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And so, we agree that we don't need the language about substance misuse prevention special fund, given the language that the Senate has done, so we're okay with omitting that, which is what was in your proposal.
Which language?
We had asked the department by 12/1/26 to review all previous appropriations from
Okay. Yeah.
that and to be funded in future years by Substance Misuse Prevention Fund.
Okay.
And that was to try to get at the things that you actually did in the Senate.
Okay, and we can talk about that when we get to where ours is.
You have additional language on Substance
Yeah.
Misuse Prevention
Yeah.
Fund, yeah.
Yeah.
Then we're moving down, to the funds, available in 28. So, this language, the House intent was that other than the 4 things that have ongoing appropriations, that we really take a step back and say, let's evaluate everything that we spent so far. Let's really look going forward and see where we should be focusing. This allows money to still be, recommendations to still come. And we really want them to stop and not make additional proposals for FY 28 other than the 4 that we already have. So we are suggesting alternate language here.
Okay, and we'll look at that.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say the hiatus for 28 is really a great idea. Really appreciate that. And so, just
Okay.
saying thank you for that.
Okay. Sorry, people. Just quickly, because I know you have another committee, I know you have another right after this.
We're good.
Oh, somebody's got.
Senator Benson.
Senator mentioned that.
Oh, okay.
But we honestly, I think we will keep going with due respect. We'll keep going. That's better. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll catch up.
keep, yeah.
The two of you.
Okay. I just wanted to respect your time when it's at you.
We're fine.
Okay.
I think it's important we get as much done as we can.
Okay.
As quickly as we can.
Yeah, quarterly, reports regarding special fund expenditures, I think we're good with that. I think we've all experienced and hearing from providers, the, issues with the health department getting timely payments out and grants, so we're good with that.
Good.
All right, take care.
Okay, so you're good with our request there.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll see that here.
on the syringe recovery, I honestly think this is like not logical.
Okay.
I think that, well, first off, syringes can be disposed of in many different places. They can be acquired in many different places. And so to equate one with the other as some sort of measure of performance doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's by 12/15/26.
So,
And this is something, tracking syringes across the state is just not logical.
we're not gonna put trackers on, and so I will say that syringe recovery and having syringes in ball fields and neighborhoods and parks and things has been an ongoing recurrent discussion by some members of the Senate, not necessarily all in this room.
Mhm.
And I think this was was this the amendment added on in the
Yep, on the floor.
in the Senate on
On the
the
floor, yeah.
by 2 members of appropriations with whom I've been talking about this regularly. The Howard Center used to have someone who would go out and recover syringes. And that has stopped. They don't do that anymore. Then the Department of Health has indicated that they are working on this and they're going to be going out in some way, either recovering or having syringes returned. So this was really something that the Department of Health has said that they can do in agreement with the senators who introduced the amendment on the floor. If it works, that would be great, but I agree with you. They come from many different places. We don't have we don't have the exchange. We know that the HIV syringe service program is much bigger than just syringes. It's hard for people to understand that. So we'll look at what your proposal is on that. Just to give you kind of a flavor for where this all came from.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Thank you. Okay, so, and then the next one we agree with is, that was what our committee's recommendation was.
So good.
To begin
Yeah,
with.
that's a good one, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. And here, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the next language, Senator Lyons, around the substance misuse prevention special fund.
Yeah, thank you for that. We tried to pin down exactly how much is in that special fund. It took us a while to get the response, how much is there. Knowing that we haven't had, I don't think we've spent adequate time in really defining the use of that fund and looking at it on an annual basis. Not that we want to micromanage these, that's the prevention programs in the Department of Health are just absolutely amazing. They're very good. But knowing what funds we have available and then knowing what the local and geographic needs are across the state, whether it's in schools or other places, I think is important. So all of which is to say, we want to know how much is in that fund, how much is expended, and then so we can just keep an eye, on what's there and how to use it. That's that.
I think that that's something that is, something that we have both struggled with.
We have.
Yes.
Well, and the other thing is, it's so simple to have overlap because now we've got opioid abatement and we have this. And, it's sometimes difficult to discriminate between what you're preventing with what. So,
And we have the cannabis money from the excise tax.
exactly.
Yeah. So, and, we are spending millions of dollars on prevention, which is not a bad thing.
No, that's what we want to do.
But-
We'd
but-
rather spend it there than at the other end of the room.
Trying to make sure that we're all doing it in the same way, I guess, that we're growing in the same direction, I think is helpful. So, I think we have, lots of areas of agreement. And we have a few areas where, we'd like to propose, few changes.
Okay, so you handed this out to us. I see there's the yellow markup. So I see that.
Why don't we have Katie, can you, put that up and then, go through what we have in, our team met earlier just before we came down and we may have a couple little changes to this, but
Okay.
just to give you the basics, okay? So Katie, I'll go through.
Okay, so this is the base of this, is the Senate version of the bill. And then the highlighted, language is what is a change from the Senate version. What you obviously don't see is if there are strike throughs. So this is the first section on, appropriations from the opioid abatement special fund. This is 6 that had been divided into 6A and B. Now it reads 1.2 to the Department of Health for the creation of new recovery residence beds at NAR certification level 3 or above, and for opioid use disorder residential treatment beds at American Society of Addiction Medicine level 3.1 with priority given to unserved and underserved regions of the state. And then if you remember, the last appropriations were moved to the special fund. What you're not seeing in this list is the 237 to DPS and the 1.1 to the OPC. Two increases, or the 287? Thank you. Right, then you have this new subsection 2, that's the legislative intent section. It is the intent of the General Assembly to consider the operational status and funding needs of Burlington's Overdose Prevention Center during the fiscal year 27 BAA process. If the General Assembly finds that a location for the Overdose Prevention Center has been procured by lease or purchase, the OPC is being fit up for its intended use, and the OPC is currently or will imminently become operational, it intends to appropriate up to 1.1 million to the Department of Health for the purpose of awarding a grant to Burlington for the work of the OPC.
So one of the things that we were talking about just before we came down here is making sure that so this will be in addition to this language that we're proposing. So it takes out the 1.1, but it says we'll consider it in BAA if you've met these conditions. And 2, we do want to add language just to make it consistent with the 3 that appear previously in the bill. Because this is one of the ones that is funded on an annual basis. So put that legislative intent piece in there that we have in the bill for the first three that get funded.
Representative, what are the conditions that you just referred to? Just the fact that they find a location and they require the money for fit up and those are okay.
Right. It's essentially, we want to evaluate, okay, are you ready to operate? You know, so they have a grant with the health department that is a 2-year grant, takes them through FY27 for a total of 2.2 million. They brought a little over 300,000 of that money down so far. We anticipate that, and they anticipate that they'll need significant amount of money for fit up. But we don't know any of that right now, because there is no identified location. And so we did not want to essentially encumber an additional 1.1 million. But we do want to recognize that we have the continuing commitment for it.
Okay,
If it's helpful, those conditions were pulled from the Senate version language. Yeah.
we had,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, sounds familiar.
Yeah, very good. My concern about not encumbering is that it is promised. It's a 5-year commitment on the part of the fund to support this center. The center continues to be extremely controversial among certain members of both the House and the Senate. You get that. It's also been a bit frustrating, the lack of forward motion. We understand that as well. And I do know that that the city of Burlington is thinking about how best to have this go forward. But for us, you know, if you don't fund it, then there's an assumption made that we don't want to fund it.
Yeah.
And I don't want that message to go out because that was debated through another bill for a long period of time. And it's happened. So it's like changing a promise in some ways. And I don't want that to be the message.
Which is why we want to add the language that we have in the first 3 elements that get funded on an ongoing basis. Yeah.
Okay, we'll look at that.
It says it's the intent of the General Assembly that the Overdose Prevention Center be funded annually by the opioid special fund unless and until the special fund does not have sufficient money. So it's
But we're not funding it. So
Well,
just remember that. Yeah, okay.
but we're saying that we will fund it if they have it.
Understood.
I just don't feel like it is judicious for us to be putting
Understood.
money out there when
And it isn't.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
understand.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. We have some renumbering because we added a new section. Okay, I am in section
4's been changed. We saw it.
yeah, section 4, 4772. Yep, page 7. So this is language around the AGO being consulted on special fund recommendations. And this is adding that the Office of the Attorney General is the consultation is with regard to allowable uses of this special fund. So it reads the advisory committee shall consult with the Office of Attorney General regarding allowable uses of the special fund in developing its recommendations. So just specifying the purpose. Section 5, if you remember, the Senate added this language about co-occurring mental health. There was a second place identified by the health department where there is identical language that the fund shall be used exclusively for opioid prevention, intervention, treatment, recovery, and harm reduction. So the same language that you have up above is being added here, so it's consistent. Section 6, this is the appropriation review. This has been rewritten to say notwithstanding 18 VSA 4772E, which is this section right here that starts with recommendations. Annually, the advisory committee shall vote on its recommendations. So notwithstanding that section, the advisory committee shall not.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
Sorry. Do you want to bring a copy of the side by side?
You said it's, and then the health department. One, we also have.
I'll take the health system one.
If it doesn't have the third column, it says health department, it's the right, it's case.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I do.
Recommendation. Okay, so I need case. Thank you. Everybody has to read it.
Okay, we all set?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so notwithstanding, 4772E, the advisory committee shall not accept funding proposals or make funding recommendations from the special fund for fiscal year 28 unless a program or initiative was previously identified in statute as intended for annual funding. Then keeping your sentence, and instead shall review outcomes of programs and initiatives previously funded through the special fund to evaluate effectiveness, sustainability, appropriateness of the special fund as a funding source where applicable to inform recommendations made in fiscal year 29 and thereafter. That was added because it maybe was a little bit confusing to say you're not going to make new funding recommendations, but you're going to review all previously funded projects. So this is saying the purpose of doing that work is not to inform fiscal year 28 recommendations, which are limited, but to inform recommendations fiscal year 29 and moving forward. And then the sentence that had been here and is no longer here is allowing the Department of Health to identify a focus area and to create recommendations within that focus area for fiscal year 28. That sentence has been removed.
Okay, and you're thinking that if there was something important, it goes through BAA?
We're thinking that it's really important to stop and evaluate what's been done so far. We would think that that was the top priority because I think that the process is maturing, I guess I would say. The committee and the department's consultation to the committee and sort of understanding that relationship. And there's been some turnover in the committee. So we're thinking that it's time to take a little bit of a pause, except for those 4 areas that we agree that should get annual funding. For instance, one of the things that people came to, based upon testimony we received in our committee, people came to the committee and they were surprised that they weren't getting funding for a second year. Things that were ongoing in nature. And, I think that one of the things that the committee needs to take into consideration is, letting people know that this might be seed money, but you might not receive this on an ongoing basis. And so that needs to be part of your application. And so things like that need to be revised. And so the department needs to work with the committee and, really sort of outline the acceptable uses again, refreshing people on the acceptable uses and on a plan, so I'll use the hireability as an example. So hireability, we have data to show that it was successful. And the administration included it in the base funding. Senate proposals to take it out of the base and put it into the opioid abatement fund. We don't think that's such a hot idea, to be honest with you, but are willing to talk about it.
So just all of which is to say that there needs to be a real cutoff and you're not willing or interested in funding anything during that 28.
But we don't know exactly what's going to be coming
Understood.
in.
We
either.
understand that. So you just started going ahead of different things. So I just want to clarify where we were.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. One thing you did mention that I will comment on is the operational funds that people are expecting year after year. That was never the intent. And so at some point, we need to reaffirm that as an intent. This is meant for infrastructure development, seed money, trying to get things started up. So
And
it's a limited supply.
yeah. And part of what we also want to encourage, which is why we were happy to see, sort of a movement in this direction is, even those I'll leave the OPC out of it right now, but the three items at the top of the list, that, you know, I think we believe are ongoing necessities, things that we should have in our array of services on an ongoing basis. You know, we've asked the department, to start to think about how are you going to include this in your base budget, you know, because these funds are not going to be here forever. And
Understood.
everybody is in agreement that these are things that should be funded on an ongoing basis.
So, and just, we'll keep going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could talk forever.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay.
Okay, quarterly reports, reversions, syringe recovery. The appropriations from the substance misuse, statutory language, and then the effective date. So that's the last of this.
Okay, so, you know, you've given us, something to look at based on your concerns through, in the side by side, is really helpful. So, I don't know what your life is like today. I suspect on the floor all day.
In 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay, so are we. So why don't we do this? Give us a chance and we'll bring Senator Benson up to date on where this is. Then we'll have a conversation here and we'll try to get back to you today or early tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't think we need to prolong the agony on this. We do have some really basic differences with some of it, but,
Is there, do you think that there's any potential way we might be able to get back together later today?
well, I would hope so. I've got, let's just.
How many conference meetings do you have, Chair? Yeah.
So what I'm gonna suggest, Lori, why don't we go off live and then we'll spend a little time just on scheduling and process.
Okay, just before we do that, though, I do want to put on
Okay.
the table, some things that I, had mentioned that, was not contained in here. And that is, we did not have the public safety enhancement team
Yes.
in our proposal.
Okay.
We are willing to consider that $287,000. But we would, propose a reduction to recovery centers, to 500,000. In
Okay.
order to fund that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you for that. And then I need to check with Nolan on a couple of things about that. I don't know what is in the budget on 51 on the, EPS harm reduction. I don't think it's in there, but you can.
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
And we don't want to lose the, hireability, work. And, I think that I want to confirm where that is or isn't in the budget and,
So let me share with you, the reason that was moved, I completely agree that priority is an outstanding program. So it's been one of my favorite programs. So, not our favorite programs in this room. The reason it was moved was to find some one-time funding for primary care.
yes,
It belongs, that, obviously going forward, it should move into base. Should we find different funding, because she's on the conference and approach as well. If we find different funding, then this it could happen within 951, within the budget itself. So that'll become a question.
yeah. The other thing that I just wanted to bring up, and this is more because we have the health department in the room, is issues that have been brought up around, you're probably hearing this in Chittenden County around BCJR and the closure of the Howard program, the redistribution of those funds, and their thought that they, despite having some public support for that, don't appear to be going to get any of those funds. So we, I guess, are curious if you have any additional information, maybe Chittenden County, around that.
It's not here right now.
And so so I guess when we look at the appropriation for syringe services and we look at the appropriation for recovery centers, I think that we'll also be proposing some language that particularly in recovery centers that we think, I can't remember because so much time and water's been under this bridge, but you might recall in BAA, we had to add money to the BAA because the health department did distribute it in the way that the recovery centers have requested it. And so I don't want to repeat that mistake. And so we would like to see similar language to, I think, what we put in the BAA, Katie, but I can't remember, added to that recovery center line. So that would be an additional.
So you're gonna add that
We're
into
gonna add that, yeah.
Okay, I don't think we'll have a problem.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, and
That was-
yes, sir.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
So the record, only look at this, well, if you decide that within the contract, with the 875 for hireability in the contract, if you decide to concur with, or that it stays in the opioid fund, you might consider putting it back into this bill, so you have all the appropriations in one place, because you're in control, which is the thought.
Rather than leaving it in the budget.
Yeah,
Correct. So
I
that
know
may be-
that that's the juggle that we're gonna have
Yeah,
to
so
do.
if the House agrees with that piece in the contract, maybe you
Yeah.
put it back in this bill, so all the appropriations are in one place. I don't know if it creates a conference issue because it wasn't a year bill. I'm just throwing it out.
yeah. I mean, I would prefer to have them all in one spot.
I prefer to have them in one spot too, but right now, I don't want to confuse this conference
Sure.
committee, but it's a great suggestion.
If it all works out.
Yeah. if it works
Okay.
out.
Well, if you two agree, you can convince the other 4 members, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your work on this. And